The events in this program are based on a true story. Names, dates, and details have been changed. Coming up on Bizarre Murders, a 15-year-old boy disappears without a trace. 2 years later, he surprisingly reemerges in another country. But upon his return, things just don't seem the same. This is Thomas Gaines, a troubled kid from a troubled home. At just age 15, he already has 3 tattoos, one of which is a cross made of bones on his left hand. Thomas has developed a bad reputation around town for being physically and verbally abusive with his own mother, Janice Gaines.
Give me the mirror. What? That's my mother's mirror.
She's not in much better shape herself. Janice is a single mother who works the graveyard shift at the local donut shop. And she's developed a terrible addiction to heroin. And some would say, an even worse addiction to sweets. Janice's favorite activity is snoring her days away, which is fine with Thomas. It gives him and his much older siblings, Kimberly and Craig, ample opportunity to behave badly. Thomas was recently arrested for shoplifting computers, a felony.
Computers.
He's on the verge of being sentenced to juvenile detention. On a hot summer day in 2008, looking for distraction, Thomas steals $5 from his mother's purse. He grabs his wallet and backpack and heads out the door to play basketball at a local park with his friends. As night falls and the game wraps up, he calls home to ask for a ride. But as always, his mother is fast asleep. Annoyed, his older brother Craig tells him to just walk home instead. This is the very last time anybody will ever speak to Thomas Gaines. One quiet summer night, he disappears into thin air, and he's never heard from again.
When a teen is reported missing, especially when there's a history of drug addiction or abuse or conflict in the home, it is almost always treated as a runaway. And in almost all of those cases, the kids are found and brought home within 72 hours or not at all. The clock is ticking on Thomas Gaines.
The circumstances lead authorities to believe that Thomas ran away for any number of reasons. But as their critical 72-hour window closes, the police begin to worry that they won't find Thomas Gaines anytime soon.
So here's the quandary the police have. Did something really bad happen to this kid, or did he take foot bail because he was afraid of going to juvie? Now the police have to start looking at different options, and they have to do it right away, because 10% of these kids who go missing don't do it voluntarily.
In Thomas Gaines' case, the vital hours turn into days, and then weeks, and then very quickly, 3 months pass without a single clue as to the boy's whereabouts. Then, one night, the cops receive an urgent phone call. Thomas's older brother Craig is on the other end of the line. He says he sees his little brother outside the house trying to break into the family's garage. The police race to the scene. They search the Gaines' garage and the rest of the property. There's not a single sign of a break-in at the house. The cops question Craig and begin to wonder if he made up the story, and if so, why?
People make up stories to tell the police all the time. You wonder, is it for fun? Did they somehow misinterpret something they saw or the facts as they were told? Or sometimes it might just be a cry for help.
2 years after the disappearance of 15-year-old Thomas Gaines, cops receive a call from a police station in Italy. The man on the other end of the line says that a young man in their care recently escaped a European drug trafficking ring where he was forced to traffic narcotics. The young man claims he was kidnapped 2 years earlier from Pomona, California. His name is Thomas Gaines. The police are stunned. The Italian caller lets them know that although visibly traumatized, Thomas seems to be in good condition. He's even learned to speak bits and pieces of several languages, including French.
Now, this is unbelievable. I mean, the odds of being found alive after being gone for 2 years is got to be somewhere like 1 in 10 million. You have a greater chance of being eaten by an alligator than you do of being found alive after being held captive for so long.
Hi, Miss Gaines.
Yeah.
Investigators arrive at Janice's door and inform her of the good news. Her long-lost son, Thomas, may have been found alive in Italy. Authorities need a family member to fly over to Europe to confirm his identity. The Gaines are in complete and utter shock. Finally, they have some of the answers to his disappearance and are thrilled he is alive. But Craig is uncharacteristically quiet, taking in all the news.
They found Tommy.
He seems shell-shocked at the news. A local church raises the money to pay for Kimberly, Thomas's older sister, to fly to Italy. Kimberly is known as the Good Gaines. She is kind, sweet, and a little naive. She's never traveled outside California before, let alone the United States. But she is really looking forward to positively identifying her little brother and ending her family's 2-year nightmare. Since Thomas's disappearance, her mother and brother have changed dramatically for the better. Janice has a new job as a bookkeeper, and Craig has just graduated from community college.
In situations where a teenager was abducted, there's a lot of trauma for the family of the victim that were left behind. Everybody needs to adapt back into the family and into the family's routine, especially the victim. But this is hard because they're all changed people.
Kimberly anxiously arrives at the police station. She's holding a stack of family photos. In another room, sitting quietly, is an older-looking teen, almost a man. Kimberly looks through a window at him. Could this young man in the corner of a foreign country 8,000 miles away from home really be her long-lost little brother? Thomas Gaines, a troubled 15-year-old kid, steals money from his mom and goes to play basketball, never to be heard from again. 2 years later, Pomona police receive a strange call from a police station in Italy that a young man in their care claims he was kidnapped 2 years earlier from Pomona, California, and that his name is Thomas Gaines. Investigators inform the Gaines family, and Thomas's sister Kimberly flies to Italy to identify him and bring him home. Police Station, Naples, Italy, 2010. Kimberly Gaines, with family photos in hand, enters a small room in which a teenager is sitting quietly. He quickly stands in disbelief. As he embraces her, she recognizes him immediately. On his left hand is his telltale cross tattoo. She quickly confirms to the authorities that this is her long-lost little brother. But authorities tell her not to expect much from Thomas right away. They say he may have been severely abused while in captivity and seems to have very few memories of his life before being abducted. He also speaks with a French accent.
In situations like this, the abductors want autonomous victims. They don't want somebody that they're going to have to lock into a room or always wonder if they're going to try to escape. So what they do is they brainwash them. They tell them that drug dealing is the most normal thing in the world to be doing. And besides, your family doesn't want you back anyway.
Satisfied, authorities release him.
You're coming home.
And the two of them head to the American consulate, where Thomas is issued a new U.S. passport. When Thomas and Kimberly arrive in California, they're greeted by a small family celebration and accompanied by some investigators.
Hi. Welcome home.
Thomas's mother, Janice, stands back surveying the scene. Kimberly pushes her towards Thomas. Janice looks at him in the eyes for a long time, and then gives him a hug. Thomas looks around and realizes one person is missing, his brother Craig. He asks her where his older brother is, but she tells him he couldn't make it. Craig has just graduated from community college, but then checked himself into a drug treatment program. While the Gaines are overjoyed to have Thomas home, little things about him seem quite strange to them. Thomas's eyes have changed color. He always had bright blue eyes, but now they are a very somber, dark shade of brown. Also, his complexion is much darker and more olive. Thomas surprisingly opens up with his family some of the horrors of his captivity. They used chemicals on him to change his skin and complexion and the color of his eyes, so he would no longer be recognizable. The Gaines are rightfully horrified and want Thomas to get back to as normal a life as possible. Janice now lives in a very small studio apartment, so Thomas moves in with Kimberly and her husband in their trailer about 20 miles outside of town.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
He sleeps on a mattress on the floor. He quickly enrolls in the local high school as a senior. That's a much more rural life than where Thomas used to live in Pomona. Family thinks it's good for him to be around new schoolmates who don't know him from before and won't judge what he's been through.
This is the story of a child who's been kidnapped, then transported to Europe by a drug trafficking ring, and then who manages to escape. It's the stuff of books and bad direct-to-DVD movies.
A tabloid news program gets wind of Thomas's story and hires a local PI, Ron Dyson, to dig deeper into the story.
Hello?
Dyson shows up at Kimberly's trailer with a TV crew looking for Thomas.
Thomas here.
No.
Kimberly asks them to leave, but Thomas walks out and volunteers to be interviewed. Dyson is stunned by the boy's thick accent and his broken English. Dyson compares a picture of 15-year-old Thomas with the 17-year-old teen before him and thinks something isn't right. After hearing Thomas's harrowing tale about how his eye color has been permanently altered, Dyson contacts several top ophthalmologists to ask if eye colors can be changed by injecting them with chemicals. They all tell him no.
You can change your eye color with contacts, yeah, but with chemicals and eye drops, not so much.
Dyson contacts a dialect expert to see if a person's accent could change so dramatically, and if they would forget their native language after 2 years.
Again, the answer is no. I mean, they might pick up an accent, maybe even new ways of phrasing their sentences, but they're not going to forget their native language.
Dyson takes his suspicions to the Pomona police, but they are distracted by another case, a possible murder. Thomas Gaines, a troubled 15-year-old kid from Pomona, California, suddenly disappears without a trace. 2 years later, the police receive a strange call from the authorities in Italy. They say a young man named Thomas Gaines is in their care. His eyes are a different color, and he has a thick French accent. Thomas and his family try to resume a normal life, but a local private investigator, Ron Dyson, starts digging into his story, senses something is wrong, and contacts the Pomona police. Meanwhile, construction workers building a new subdivision in Pomona have unearthed the skeletal remains of a preteen boy. Found along with his bones are a t-shirt and basketball shorts, a dirt-stained backpack, and the wallet of a 15-year-old Thomas Gaines. Homicide detectives are concerned. They send the bones away for DNA testing. If the bones are Thomas Gaines, then who is the young man living with them? If the bones are not Thomas's, then whose are they? Authorities decide they must get DNA from Thomas Gaines. They visit the trailer and invite Thomas to come to the station with them to answer questions about his captors.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thomas obliges, and while at the station, they have him take a DNA test and fingerprints.
Yeah. You know, they didn't fingerprint him? I mean, really? That's the first thing you do. It is crucial to find out things like, who is this guy? The police run his fingerprints through the FBI database and Interpol. They get a hit, but they're stunned with the results. The person claiming to be Thomas Gaines is actually a French national by the name of Jacques Gobert. He's known to law enforcement agencies in Europe as an impersonator of missing children. He even has a nickname, the Changeling.
Each time Jacques was exposed as an imposter, he would casually admit to his crime and move on in the dead of night to a new town and start again. Pomona Police Department, 2010. Pomona police press Jacques for details on how he ended up impersonating Thomas Gaines. Jacques says, "I'm not a bad person. I just want to be loved. I just want a family of my very own for once." He happily admits that he was living in a youth shelter in Italy, but he was on the verge of being discovered. So he decided to steal the name and identity of a real person this time, an American. So it would be harder for Italian authorities to confirm. At night, he snuck into the shelter's office and called the U.S. Center for Missing and Exploited Children, disguised as one of the employees.
Jacques basically describes himself to the woman on the phone, and she checks her databases and finds that this kid bears a strong resemblance to a kid who went missing out of Pomona 2 years before. And so what if the eye color doesn't match? Everything else was so close.
The U.S. Center for Missing and Exploited Children quickly emails Jacques a picture of Thomas Gaines on the shelter's computer. He thinks he closely resembles the American boy and can easily pass as him. Gobert confirms that the missing teen is at the shelter standing in front of them.
Now the con is on for Jacques. He studies the picture and finds this tattoo on the kid's hands. Next stop, the tattoo parlor, where this genius gets the exact tattoo on his hand, right about there. Final stop, the Naples Police Department. And that's how it happened. But now the Pomona police aren't just looking at Jacques as an imposter. They're looking at him as a murder suspect.
Police arrest Gobert on another charge, forgery.
At this point, there's more questions than answers. And two of those questions are, number one, what happened to Thomas Gaines? And number two, why are the Gaines family playing along with the charade that Jacques is Thomas?
When police get the DNA back from the bones, it's a match for Thomas Gaines. They begin to interrogate Jacques. He doubles down on his story of impersonating the boy, but says he had nothing to do with the boy's actual disappearance. But he says the only family member who avoids him is Thomas's older brother, Craig. He tells the police he thinks Thomas's brother had always known he was an imposter, but he's not sure why. Jacques Gobert is a con man in his early 20s from France. He has duped a long-suffering family and authorities from 2 different countries into believing that he's Thomas Gaines from Pomona, California. But 3 months after Gobert moved to Pomona, the real Thomas Gaines' remains were unearthed by a construction crew. Jacques breaks down and admits he is an imposter, but has no idea who killed the real Thomas Gaines. Pomona detectives inform Janice Gaines about the discovery of her son's remains and the identity of the young man who had claimed to be Thomas Gaines. Janice is stunned and tearful. She says that she began to suspect the young man was not her son, but she so badly wanted to believe it. Craig is less emotional, but he denies knowing anything about his brother's disappearance. A few days later, the police visit Craig in his apartment to question him again. But they find him dead of a drug overdose, which they rule a suicide. Janice breaks down when police tell her the news about Craig. She knows why Craig killed himself. 2 years ago, after Thomas disappeared, Craig admitted to his mother that he killed Thomas, choking him in a drug-induced rage. He buried Thomas's body in the woods, close to their house.
Janice probably kept Craig's secret all these years because of her own guilt, shame, and to protect the one son she still had left.
Janice Gaines is found guilty of accessory to murder and goes to prison for 10 years. Meanwhile, Jacques Gobert pleads guilty to perjury and possessing and obtaining official documents under false pretenses. For his callous and thoughtless impersonation of a missing boy, Jacques is sentenced to 6 years.
This is a case with multiple tragic endings. It's the story of a family who loses a child only to have him resurface years later and then to lose him again to the most unimaginable circumstances. On the other hand, a man who just wished he had a family to love him went to great lengths to make that happen. And for a little while, maybe it was healing for both of them.
Coming up on Bizarre Murders, when a bored housewife attempts to spice up her sex life by secretly having her new boy toy move into her walk-in closet, she gets way more than she bargained for. Roanoke, Virginia, 2011. Randy Roberts, 37, a mild-mannered small business owner looking for friendship and possibly love. Even though he's a button-up, slacks loafers kind of guy, he knows he has a lot to offer the right lady, and he's working hard at meeting her. After spending years singularly devoted to starting his own business, Randy's finally turning his focus to finding a wife. In hopes of improving his odds, Randy's joined several different online dating websites. Catch, Cinder, and one that cuts right to the chase, Let's Get Hitched, a very popular website for all types of ladies who have every detail of their dream wedding planned. Now they just need to find a groom. Randy dives right in and spends most of his nights combing through the profiles.
Within law enforcement, it's no secret that people who are late bloomers are more vulnerable to people who would do them harm, who are criminals, con men, and those who are less than trustworthy.
Meet Candace, 33. She's on the opposite end of the spectrum from Randy. She's often referred to as a social butterfly and has dated more than her fair share of men. But she can't quite seem to meet a good one, or at least one that isn't still in a garage band with his friends from high school. For the last 5 years, Candace has been struggling. She's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and takes several different antidepressant medications. Because of her condition, it's hard to find a full-time job. Candace delivers pizzas 3 days a week.
Hey, Randy.
Hey!
Candace has one really good tipper every Tuesday and Thursday, the polite, awkward man she only knows as Randy. At first, Candace doesn't really pay much attention to him, but the more she gets a look at his shy smile and coy side-eyed glances, she finds his fumbly flirting sweet, and all the attention gives a jolt to her self-esteem. Eventually, she finds herself dressing more and more provocatively on Tuesday and Thursday nights just to give him a thrill and make him blush.
Is that a heart? Oh man, that's amazing!
Finally, one night, Randy musters up the courage to ask his pizza delivery goddess out.
Well, I was wondering if you might want to go out on a date with me.
I would love to.
She gladly accepts. Their first date is like a lightning strike to him. He crushes hard for her within the first hour. Candace has never been courted like this before and appreciates Randy showering her with constant attention. Two young lovers in a whirlwind romance, Candace accepts Randy's surprise marriage proposal.
I'm no relationship expert, but common sense would say it's probably wise to know somebody for a full 4 seasons before jumping into a permanent relationship with them. And it's probably likely that people who know Randy and Candace were not thrilled about how quickly they were jumping into theirs.
When the engagement's announced, Candace's best friend since childhood, Larry, is very concerned. Candace has been confiding in him that Randy's completely Dolesville and rather lackluster in the bedroom. As it turns out, people aren't too thrilled on Randy's side either. Randy comes from an old, well-to-do Roanoke family, and his mother never wanted to cut the cord. In fact, she and Randy talk every day at 1 p.m. without exception.
I'm ready for this.
Mournfully, his mother had been heard on more than one occasion confiding to her bridge friends that Candace is by no means a suitable wife for her son. Candace is a girl with a reputation.
Rumor has it that the ladies at the bridge game considered Candace to be well navigated. I love that term. It means she's been around the block.
Despite the naysayers, Candace and Randy tie the knot in a small ceremony at the county courthouse. Then they move into a new home in an affluent Roanoke neighborhood. Much to everyone's surprise, the couple work in Randy's hardware store together. They build a thriving business. The store requires all of Candace and Randy's time and energy, and before they know it, the couple has spent every minute living and working together for 10 years.
Well, did you set the alarm or not? You know
Eventually, the stress of owning and running a successful business and the strain of spending too much time together takes its toll on Candace and Randy's marriage. Randy likes quiet conversations, long walks on the beach, and is a Sunday night feet up on the coffee table video games kind of husband. Something that's starting to repulse Candace.
Really?
She feels trapped in her marriage and longs for the carefree days of her youth spent with bad, broke musicians who smell of that seductive combination of sweat and cigarette smoke. Fed up and claustrophobic, Candace moves out and gets her own place.
Anyone who's been married for any length of time can tell you that couples who spend too much time together can start to get on each other's nerves, and that is the road to disaster and divorce. Oh, hey, I'm looking for one of these.
Over the next few months, Randy does his best to convince his wife to come home. On her part, Candace starts to realize life on her own again isn't quite as spectacular as she remembered. She also realizes that things about Randy aren't so bad, and that she actually really likes one thing in particular: his money. She makes up her mind to return home to her husband and to their somewhat blah but unfailingly steady and stable life. Then, one afternoon, a few months later, things take a dramatic turn. A frightened Candace frantically beats on her neighbor's door. When the woman answers, Candace pleads with her to call 911. Her husband, Randy, has just been murdered. Randy Roberts and Candace get married after a whirlwind courtship. After a decade together, the couple has hit a rough patch and decide to separate. Eventually, they reunite, and for a few short months, everything is fine. Trembling, Candace stands on the steps of her neighbor, begging the woman to call 911.
Randy has been murdered. Call.
She shockingly reveals that she has a jealous lover, Ricardo, who has just murdered her husband, Randy.
Call 911. Oh my God.
When a man is murdered in his home, 90% of the time, the wife is going to be your first suspect. So now the police have to begin evaluating the behavior and the actions of his wife.
Oh, here we go.
The police arrive at Randy and Candace's home and quickly notice things just aren't adding up. Randy Roberts' body is in a full state of rigor mortis.
Rigor mortis is the stiffening of the muscles in the body, making the body rigid. That means Randy's been dead somewhere between 14 and 18 hours, so it's not possible that he was just murdered.
The scene also looks staged. Randy's body is found stuffed in a bathtub, wrapped in a blanket, with his head covered with a white plastic convenience store bag. It seems to them it's supposed to indicate that he was strangled and suffocated to death. However, looking at the man's numerous wounds, it's pretty clear that Randy was bludgeoned to death.
With a number of wounds on the body, this is indicative of what we call overkill. And overkill is the continued assaulting of a body much beyond what is needed to cause death. And that's usually a sign of rage, anger, and betrayal.
Inside the closet a few feet away from the bathroom, police find an inexpensive black stiletto high heel covered in blood. To the police, it's pretty clear the stiletto is their murder weapon. Also, the sheets on the couple's bed have a story to tell of their own. They're in complete disarray, except for the very noticeable dried blood puddle left from the stab wounds that seem to match Randy's chest.
The location of a murder says so much about the crime. For instance, if the murder occurs in a bedroom, it's an indication that it could be two romantically involved people. If there's no robbery, it could simply be the settling of a personal grudge.
Candace Roberts' story has been pretty much blown to pieces by the evidence at the scene. So, the top two questions on the minds of investigators are, if Randy died the night before, what has Candace been doing the last 16 hours? A few months after Candace returned home, the couple had gone to downtown Roanoke to watch the fireworks on the 4th of July. After the show, Randy wanted to go home and turn in for the night. Excited by the spectacular show, Candace wanted to stay out late and hit up a few bars and party for the night.
Yes, see you in the morning. All right. Sleep good.
Bye.
Okay, love you.
Randy begrudgingly accepts and goes home, leaving Candace by herself. Candace stumbles into a dirty dive bar on the outskirts of downtown. As she walks into the bar across the room, she locks eyes with an exotic stranger. The good-looking young man, Ricardo, is a day laborer from Mexico. He's also out on the town, hanging with a friend, and they've been celebrating and drinking all night. After several shots of liquid courage, Candace convinces the two young men to come with her to a seedy, pay-by-the-hour motel where they can all celebrate in private with a threesome.
What was Randy thinking? I mean, he left his wife all alone downtown so she could go binge drinking. I mean, the woman had bipolar disorder. She was prone to making irrational decisions, and she had no impulse control.
Candace and Ricardo start a torrid affair. It's invigorating and exciting, and they are almost inseparable. But Ricardo is homeless, and Candace can only think of one solution.
You need a place to stay. Ta-da!
In her master bedroom walk-in closet, Candace has made up a sleeping bag for Ricardo, tucked away behind her clothes. It's the perfect place for her young Latin lover to squat and hide.
Time for work.
Every morning, she tells Randy she can't go into the office because of her bipolar disorder.
All right, I'll see you soon.
This lie is the perfect cover and leaves Candace free to spend all day having sex with Ricardo. Unfortunately for her, though, she really has no idea how on the edge she's actually living. Ricardo has a criminal record in Mexico City for aggravated assault.
Just imagine if Candace knew about Ricardo's criminal past. With her great judgment, who knows?
Candace!
After just a month of Candace and Ricardo's new living arrangements, Randy unexpectedly comes home to surprise his wife in the middle of the afternoon. When he approaches the bedroom door, he's startled to hear Candace moaning in ecstasy in their bedroom. Heartbroken and angry, Randy bursts through the bedroom door. Randy Roberts' wife has been cheating on him for months with her live-in lover Ricardo, while Randy's at work. One day, Randy comes home to hear a loud, orgasmic moaning coming from their bedroom. On the verge of tears and full of frustration, a heartbroken Randy bursts through his bedroom door.
Oh.
He's completely shocked when he finds his wife, Candace, giving herself a personal pick-me-up.
Sorry?
Randy looks around the room. He reluctantly accepts that Candace is telling him the truth. Later that night, Randy tucks himself into bed next to his wife, Candace, and tries to go to sleep. As he's lying there in the quiet of the night, Randy hears something. It sounds to him like a man snoring. Randy rushes to his wife's closet and flings open the door.
Oh my God.
A startled Ricardo looks up as Randy pulls him out from under Candace's clothes.
Who is this?
Candace runs over to the closet in a flurry, trying to explain. Randy tells her he doesn't want to hear it. He knew something was wrong earlier in the afternoon when he caught her entertaining herself. Randy tells Candace he's going for a walk to calm down, and that Ricardo better be gone by the time he gets home. Candace is confused on what to do and how to handle the situation, but Ricardo calms her down and realizes he has to get rid of Randy permanently. When Randy returns home from his walk, Ricardo appears out of nowhere, jumping him from behind and violently beats Randy to death with one of Candace's high-heel shoes. Candace hides in the closet where she can't see or hear anything. Ricardo lets her know when Randy's dead.
The moment Randy walks out of the house is significant because that's the moment that Candace and Ricardo start planning his death. And that's the moment that this goes from crime of passion to premeditated murder.
The murderous duo are emboldened by their heinous crime and celebrate by dragging Randy's lifeless body into the king-size bed with them. They proceed to have sex over and over again while Randy's corpse lies next to them. They even go as far as to record it and smile for the camera as they upload it to the cloud so that they can share it with Ricardo's buddies from the 4th of July. When they're done, they take Randy's body into the bathroom, and that's when they decide to cover his head with the white plastic bag. After a restful night's sleep, Candace gets up bright and early and pretends it's just another normal day.
We're in a hardware store.
Okay.
She grabs a shovel, plastic sheeting, duct tape, bleach, and some sodium hydroxide.
Say you're in a hardware store and somebody comes in and you see them purchase a shovel, some plastic sheeting, a little duct tape, some bleach, and some sodium hydroxide. Well, they're not painting their house, they're disposing of a body. Look at Murder for Dummies, page 1, supplies. That's what you buy.
Candace leaves the hardware store but gets a worried phone call from her mother-in-law.
Hey, Barbara.
She hasn't heard from Randy for their daily 1 p.m. chat, and he's not answering his phone. Candace quickly tells her mother-in-law Randy's really under the weather and he'll call when he's feeling better. Randy's mother offers to bring her son some soup. She promises it's not necessary, but recognizes her lies are only going to buy her so much time with Randy's mom.
Oh my God.
With the pressure mounting, Candace has an anxiety attack, and her mania crashes into a dark stupor. That's when she hatches her scheme to turn in her young lover and blame him for murdering her husband in a jealous rage. As she drives up to her house, she jumps out of the car, running desperately to her neighbor's front door. The police quickly arrive at the Roberts home and find Randy's dead body in the master bathroom covered in a blanket. They hear odd noises coming from the master bedroom closet. With guns drawn, police throw open the closet door, and they are truly shocked at what they see next. Randy Roberts has been bludgeoned to death by his cheating wife's young lover in what she reported to police as a fit of jealous rage. The police have also just discovered what could be the most disturbing part of the crime in the couple's closet. The police burst through the master bedroom's walk-in closet.
Get your hands up! Don't move!
What they find is almost unimaginable. Candace Roberts' young boy toy is sprawled out on a sleeping bag in his underwear.
Get down, get down, get down.
They quickly arrest Ricardo for Randy's murder and put him in handcuffs. Candace Roberts has just dodged a major bullet, at least in her own mind. Her young lover has just been arrested for the first-degree murder of her husband, Randy. And she's free and clear and has her house and Randy's money all to herself. As the police talk to her, they inform her that they know Randy was killed 16 hours before she ever reported the crime. She feigns surprise. They let her know that they're not buying her story and want to know why she's been lying to them. They also want to know about the cozy setup in the closet. Police inform her that they have uncovered some pretty incriminating evidence. A video that shows the aftermath of her husband's murder that was uploaded to the cloud. They arrest a stunned Candace on the spot and read her rights.
If you're going to commit a murder, don't take selfies with the bodies. Do you know who does that? Idiots.
Candace Roberts and her lover Ricardo were both convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole.
This is the story of the American dream, gone tragically wrong. And these three stories intersected in one bedroom, and the lives of three people were destroyed.